so the general manager of the San Antonio Spurs actually brought all of the arbiter stuff back to his organization. And everybody in the organization, as well as the players, actually read Leadership and Self-Deception. They talk about it and they utilize it. In other words, do you think that all these passes, it's intentional, or is it just kind of happen as it happens? Do you think there's something intentional about it? Very much so. Now, do you think that it's practiced? Yeah. Do you think they just read a book and say, okay, that translates into more passing, so hopefully we can put it all together when we get there on the court? That something takes a lot of practice, right? Now, when you see them out there on the court, though, does it look like they're really thinking through it all? And, oh, wait, I was going to shoot, but now I should pass? Or does it look like it's their instincts are kicking in? The instincts, right? See, that's a great power. It's getting to the point where these things are practiced, and then they become our natural instincts. And because it's gradually become instinctive for them to play this way, when they're out there on the court, it's incredible to watch. Pass, 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 goal. Field goal. Which is actually technically for wrestling. Boom, 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 and they win the game. Typically what we do at this point is actually play one of those games. We're not going to here. We don't have the space.
Play basketball?
Yeah. What we actually do, I'll just describe the way that they do it. Or the way that we set it up in here. We would take you to another place, we'd give you like a tennis ball, and set up a couple of posters. So I'll just describe exactly how this plays out so you can kind of see the principles that come from, okay? They go into, we bring them into another room usually, or if we're in an open area, we bring them all in front. We say, all right, let's have 3-on-3. Pick the teams, we get 3 people. They'll say your goal is to score. Now, you don't really have to dribble, it's a tennis ball. Try it, guys, so it looks like we're pretending like it's a basketball. And then the goal is to go and touch the post-it that's on the wall, and that's the point, that's the basket. Okay, so that's the offense. The defense, you say, all right, defense, I'm putting down 2 post-its, one of them over there and one of them over there. Those are your boxes. You need to stay there until I tell you you can get out of the box. Until then, you need to stay there. You say, all right, that's fine. And then, let's say the basket is back here behind me. The offense is over there with the ball. The defenders are standing right here. I say, go ahead and start. And immediately the defenders are looking at me. You're going to let us get out of the box. I don't. The basket. They just wander right through them and score a point. All right, let's do that again. Defense, you guys got to play better. Come on, they just scored. That was too easy. All right, go. What do? This time they go around them, they go up, they score a point again. By now, and usually I'll put some of the more athletic people, guys and girls, as the defenders, because they're just getting frustrated. They're competitive. They know they can dominate, but they're not being able to do anything. Why aren't they being able to do it? Obviously, it's a metaphor. They're standing in the box. They're limited in what they can do as a team. They're limited in their effectiveness. They're so narrow in their scope that they're not regionally perfectly aware. Then, what we do is you say, all right, this is a little bit unfair. Let's go ahead and do it again. And as soon as they start dribbling, I say, get out of the box. And so they get out of the box, and they're just shutting them down. And they look like they can't move at all. And they say, all right, get back in the box. So, regardless, when they come back, they're standing back in the box. Of course, the offense can go right around. Score 3-0 usually. At that point, I say, all right, do you guys want to switch sides? And they say, yes, it's about time. So we go ahead, and defense gets to be offense, and then offense gets to be defense. And I say, okay, we're going to do a little bit different this time. This time, the offense has to be in the box. Of course, you already switched, and everybody's frustrated. Basically, you begin to see a very obvious and visual representation of how confining, how limited, and how incapable you are when you are in this box. You can't function as a team. You can't think as a team. You can't even really truly defend even what's right around that. Now, if it comes into your zone, you can deal with it. You can stop it. But outside of that, you're really pretty weak and you're not able to do very much. The San Antonio Spurs are a great representation of taking an outward mindset and showing the application even within the sporting events. The application is universal. When you begin to think with an outward mindset and seeing others around you and being, again, situationally aware, collaborative in your mindset, you can't do that fully without having that outward mindset, okay? So it gets to the point where it's very instinctive and it's something that they just naturally do. Move on here. By the way, that Peace Players International is a really interesting organization. They function, again, all over the world. It's a non-profit organization. So the general manager of the Spurs is on the board. They do some incredible work. So one of the most common places they do this is with Israeli and Palestinian youth in the Middle East. they actually bring them together on a basketball court. And again, you know, there's so many things that are going on there. You now have the tools that if we're really to unpack what's happening there, you'd be able to talk about all the different elements. But think about it for a moment. Bring them out on your basketball court. First thing you're forced to do is you can no longer judge anybody by anything other than their skill on the court and seeing them as a teammate or seeing them as somebody on the opposite team. The other thing that they're doing is that they're beginning to see each other as people. They're finding a way to gradually get them out of the box, out of this collusion that's been going on for generations and generations, right? Where both sides are absolutely certain that they are right. And what makes it complicated is both sides, to some extent, are absolutely right. Their narratives just conflict. They both hold certain elements of the truth, right? And so that perpetuates itself. It goes on and on and on. There aren't easy answers to these. This isn't as simple as, well, you guys just need to do this, this, and this in the Middle East and solve it. But you can begin to make inroads. You can begin to start moving things in opposite directions. We talked about negative ripple effects. You can also talk about positive ripple effects. What happens when somebody that's 10 years old, when they grow up and they're gradually seeing each other as humans, as people, they still recognize there's some difficulties and some problems and opposing, conflicting goals perhaps, but they at least see each other as people. As that generation continues to get older and older, they become more influential. So sometimes these collusions, we talk about solving complex problems, sometimes these things don't happen overnight. But you stay the course, you keep moving in the right direction. You look for those incremental victories as you grow up, okay? All right, so this is what we're going to do. The rest of the day is really all about taking the things that we've learned and beginning to think instinctively about their application. We're going to apply them in a few different areas. But these things, it doesn't happen unless we're practicing it. And practice eventually leads to our instincts being changed. Right now, we are all burdened and imprisoned by our instincts. And as much as we want to say those instincts, well, that's just the way I am, so deal with it. It's not. It's the way you've become. Okay? It's the way you become. Every single one of us, to some extent, in the way that we interact, in some regards, anything that lessens the way that we see somebody is something that we've gradually acquired over time for various different reasons. So we're trying to cut through all of that and recreate some new instincts, essentially rewire ourselves. But it can't happen without practice. So we're going to look at 4 different applications. Okay? But the first thing we need to do is think about how this mindset shifts when we're at work. Okay? So we've kind of gone through this a little bit. All right, page 91. I'm curious to know what page it is for. Okay. Oh, it feels like we're getting closer, right? That's fun. Maybe we'll all end up on the same page.
Right, but outside learning. Oh wait, I don't know if I have that. No, it talks about the outside. Doesn't have the model.
It's 92 for us.
All right, 92. You know what's funny? This is different from mine too.
I don't
We're the same, right?
Well, I just think it says outside. It's this page.
Yeah.
So, all right, what page is yours? 88 and 89, or 92 and 93. This is just to keep y'all awake. This is working. You think it's an accident? It's all intentional. All right. All right. Think about how we worked on shifting our mindset. If you recall, there were some very specific steps to this. It's trying to get ourselves out of the box toward an individual. Begin to go from inward to an outward mindset. And one of those critical elements was the first step, which is outside. We actually had that exercise. And when we begin to consider other person's outside triangles, their objectives and challenges, that begins to make it easier to find this way to improve that relationship and to begin to think and to get out of the box for it. Because again, they become a fuller person to us. And again, I go back to the individual that I had that almost conflict with at the banquet. Suddenly I became aware of an outside triangle element. So the more that we know about each other's outside triangles, the more that we're genuinely curious, we kind of invite in ourselves this great transformation, this ability to go on to these other steps. But it kind of begins with that, okay? So that first step is outside. All right. Second step is inside. Then we considered how we have perhaps made things more difficult for them. Sometimes this is a hard place for us to go. We have to kind of begin to really truly think about that. Open ourselves to the possibility. We have to challenge our own assumptions. And we identified something to do for them that we thought that they would appreciate or find helpful. Okay? Number 3, this is the third move. So we go outside, inside, out. The third move, the out move, is represented by the arrows above. What do you think that third move means? What do you think those arrows signify? Outside, inside, and then number 3, you see these cycling arrows.
That you continue to learn more about them.
big part of it, absolutely. It's a continual process, right? You don't just suddenly get, okay, I know the outside triangle, so I'm done with the curiosity bit. They're forever frozen as that individual. There's ongoing learning, right? What else? So that might suggest this part, I'm learning about them. What about this arrow? Continue to learn. I continue to learn more about that individual.
And their objectives.
Okay, absolutely. I'm cognizant of their objectives. I make sure I continue to know those.
They're learning about you.
Okay, there's a cycle. There's a reciprocity that begins to take place, right? At the end of the day, I'm thinking about others. I think about how I've been doing things, and so I change things. At a certain point, do I need to know if those things that I'm doing are actually having a positive effect on them or not? It's kind of an accountability factor, okay? So we go outside, we go inside, and we go out. Outside, inside, out. Outside, inside, out. Outside, inside, out. Okay, great. That third step is really the accountability element, and it's that continuation. It's that idea that this is an ongoing process. There's something cyclical about it, but it's also a recognition of the fact that, again, if I simply stop here, I know the person's outside triangles. Odds are I'm going to be able to think of some things that I think can be helpful to that individual. So first of all, I'm in a very different place already than when I was back in that inward mindset, just trying to do something nice. But at the end of the day, if I don't have a way of actually making sure that the things that I'm doing are having the effect that we're both hoping for, and they really are a benefit to the individual, in some respects, it's just a more glorified version of that inward mindset where I was doing nice things, right? I have to eventually account. I've got to account in some form or fashion, okay? And make sure that these things are actually working. So outside, inside, out. This is how we get out of the box. This is how we begin to resolve problems. This is how we begin to transform conflict. This is outside, inside, out process. Okay? So, again, you see this now in all the different directions. Okay? So in a work environment, again, we're talking about that 360 element. Traditionally, we only think that we're accountable to a manager, somebody who's directly above us. And yet, if we're truly holding ourselves at a standard where we say we need to see each other as people, then suddenly we're really needing to account in all directions. Okay? So again, think and work outside, inside, out. Outside, step one, strive to understand the other's outside triangles, what they're needing, wanting to do, and how my work is affecting theirs. Okay, that's a big part. Again, the case study, I think I mentioned it to you yesterday. We're going to go into a case study here in a minute. It's really fun. But I've got to know these outside triangles. Step number one. Okay, this is where we get really curious. Always remember that term. Get really curious, because you'll find yourself sometimes realizing, you know, when we run out of questions after 3 or 4 minutes, we see how these muscles have atrophied. We really are having to force ourselves to get curious about another human being. And yet, if we're on the other side, we can think of a million questions that we'd love answered or asked of us, and a million other things that we could talk about if somebody were to ask us the questions. So there's a disconnect there to some extent. And so we're really literally having to learn to flex and exercise these muscles and really getting curious, okay? Then plan and execute my work more helpfully. So I go outside, I come back and say, is there a way I can perform my job, taking this into account, so that I'm not causing problems over here? I might actually be helping them. In the meantime, I'm not really expending any more energy. I'm just taking this into account, into the way I do it. There's several ways I can carry out my job and responsibility, right? So this is where we decide to be really, really helpful. Okay? And then out, I hold myself accountable for actually helping. Assess and report my performance in terms of impact, making improvements and course corrections along the way. What we're moving into now is this systematic approach toward finding a way that we can institutionalize this within our organization, within the way that we do our job, and other things, okay? So this is where I hold myself accountable for impact. All right. So when you begin to think of this outside, inside, out, and this process, it can be applied to anything. It can be applied to budgeting. It can be applied to anything that we do, reviews, strategic planning, all of these things. When we begin to think about this outside, inside, out approach toward product development, program development, every one of our jobs, you can begin to see a way that you can implement and utilize this framework, this template of outside, inside, out. Okay? So, this is what we're going to do the rest of the day. We're going to apply this outside, inside, out methodology, this framework, to the following areas. Number one, to achieving my own results. Okay? So me as an individual, my job description. How can I apply outside, inside, out so that I'm more effective, and so that my work, at the end of the day, Your work is meant to make things go better for the organization. That's why you were hired. So if there's a way that it can become more effective by taking into account other people's triangles, all the better. Just hit the other part. So achieving my own results, helping others achieve their results, okay? Our reporting practices, and then ultimately conflicts that we might face. We'll actually apply this. We'll be utilizing all of the frameworks, the methodologies that we've used up to this point toward determining and figuring out how we can begin to transform conflicts, whether they be acute or long-term and intransigent. And we really dug in, okay? All right, so this is where we're going to go. So we have 4 modules left. Each of them are going to touch on these things. We're going to tie it up at the end of the day, okay? So it kind of gives you a sense of where we're going. We're about 10:40, so we've got about an hour before lunch, and so we're going to dive in to the first one, which is how we can utilize this outside, inside out approach in what we do, in my job, in my objectives. We're going to start with that, okay? And this, we are going to build a map here, job responsibilities map. So this is where I want you to start. I'm not going to tell you the page because it's wrong. Just find the page that says job responsibilities map. All right, has everybody got it?
Yes.
Wonderful. I'm just wondering if they all look the same. Okay, good. Good. All right. That's fantastic. All right, this is what I want you to do. Think of your job. All right, you walk into an elevator. Somebody says, what is it you do? I just want you to think of that question. Just write the 4 main job responsibilities, roles, responsibilities that you have. Maybe there are only 2. Just write 2. If there are 6, just write 4. No more than 4, but if you only have 1 or 2, that's okay. Just what are the key critical elements, the key things that you do within your job? Key roles and responsibilities. Could be key objectives, strategies, activities. You just kind of want to know 4 main areas. All right. Now we're just going to go about step by step building out this map. Dive into it a little bit more. For each area of responsibility, so 1, 2, 3, 4, I've written those names of these areas, okay? For each area of responsibility, list the 3 main activities that you engage in, the objectives you pursue, or strategies you deploy. So number 4, I might write 1 or 2 things down here. Number 3, 1,